Good morning. We're learning as Chus for Shleima Pilan Chaya Basarach. We're at the Mishnah on Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph, 3 lines in the top. Moving on to Smicha. Kol Karbanos Hatziba Ein Bohen Smicha. The general rule is Karbanos Tzibur don't have Smicha Chutz Min HaPara Ba'al Kol HaMitzvahs, except for some reason we're calling the Pak the Helam Dover Shel Tzibur. If the everyone was over on Avera, but by the direction of the Sanhedrin. The Sar HaMishtalech, as well as Sar HaMishtalech, the Sar LaZazel on Yom Kippur. Those are two Karbanos Tzibur that do have Smicha. There are exceptions that have Smicha. Shimon Omer, Af Sar Avadis Kechavim. Shimon says Sar Avadis Kechavim as well, even though he says Af Sar Avadis Kechavim. That means everyone agrees Sar HaMishtalech, but he's not going to count Sar HaMishtalech for a specific reason. He says not counted as a smicha, but he doesn't disagree really about Sar HaMishtalech. Kol Karbanos Hayachid Tu'unin Smicha, and conversely, Karbanos Yachid generally do need smicha. Chutz min HaBachar v'Hamaisa v'Pesach, except for Bachar, Maisa, and Pesach, that those are going to be explained on the next block. V'Hayirish. Now, for some reason, the Mishnah is structured a bit strangely. It tells us a din that a Yirish is Saimech. Once we're telling the din of Smicha, we tell us a din that a Yirish is Saimech. And once we mention the Yirish, we say a Yirish also has some other dinim, who maybe Nesachim. He can also bring Nesachim, which we had just a couple of blot ago, that a Yirish brings Nesachim. If his father, if someone brought a carbon and he died, and his Yerishes bring it, he's going to do the smicha. The Yerish is going to do the smicha, and he's going to bring the nesacha u'meimer. And he can also, even though it's not technically his carbon, it's really his father's carbon. But if he does tmura on it, if he says I want to exchange it, it's going to have the regular din of tmura, that the carbon, the new carbon, the tmura is going to be kaddish as well. And he's going to be over and allowed. So Gemara, Paraban, Kol Karbanos Hatziba Ein Bohen Smicha Chutz Mipar Haba'al Kol HaMitzvah Sirei Havayis Kechavim Divrei Rav Shimon. Like we just said, the only exceptions to Karbanos Tzibur that have Smicha is Param Davar Shel Tzibur and the Sirei Havayis Kechavim. So we're saying the second one from our Mishnah first. He said, Sirei Havayis Kechavim, he leaves out Sar LaZazel. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Sirei Havayis Kechavim Ein Bohen Smicha. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees, like we saw in our Mishnah, just structured differently. It's being presented differently. But as me avitachteim, who am I going to put in the place of Sirei Havayis Kechavim, since I say it doesn't have Smicha, Sirei HaMishtalech. Instead, I'm going to put in the Sar LaZazel, that needs Smicha.
What is that?
It's Param Davar Shel Tzibur. That's Paraba. I'll call a mitzvah. Someone was over any of the mitzvahs. If you look at the Rashi in the Ksav Yad, I think he explains that. Rashi Paraba Kol Mitzvah Sal Achas Mikol Mitzvah Hoyre Bezdin Shecholav Chelav Motav Hu Parhalom Davar Shebavayikra. It's a Parhalom Davar Shel Tzibur. Okay. Interestingly enough, that is not going to be discussed at all in the Gemara. Param Davar Shel Tzibur, the pasuk I think says it directly, so Param Davar Shel Tzibur is not a issue. But the other part is whether the Machlekes Rav Yehuda Rav Shimon about whether that Rav Yehuda says that it's the second exception is a Sar LaZazel. Rav Shimon says it's a Sirei Havayis Kechavim. Correct the Gemara. What kind of question is this? Who are you putting to replace, since he's taking out? Rabbi Yehuda is saying he doesn't. He holds Sirei Havayis Kechavim, does not have Smicha, and therefore he's putting in Sar HaMishtalech. Why does he have to put something in its place? Why do there have to be two exceptions? We have a halacha l'Moshe Misinai that there are two things, two Karbanos Tzibur that need Smicha. Amalei Reb Shimon, Amalei ain't smicha ela b'bailam. Reb Shimon says you can't count the Sar Lazazel as one of the two smichas that the Halacha Moshe Messina tells you, because it's not counted as a smicha. Smicha is only by bailam. So this is like a different kind of smicha, and it doesn't get included as it's not a classic smicha, so we're not going to include it. Because a classic smicha always has to be done by the owners. The Sar Lazazel, the smicha on it was done by Aaron and his sons, and according, as we're going to see, according to Rav Shimon, Aaron Ubanav, the Kayanim, do not get a kapara from the Sar Lazazel. The kapara of the Sar Lazazel was for Yisrael. The Kaihanim have their own carbon to get. It's provides a kapara for all the averis that Yisraelim and Leviim have done during the year. And Aaron Ubanav, as we're going to see, they get their kapara, I think, from the Par Kain Gadol. I think that's where it's from. But it comes from a different source. So they're not the bailim of this carbon. Since they don't get a kapara from this carbon, they're not the bailim. So that makes it that this is not a classic smicha. So that's why Rav Shimon says it can't be included as one of the two halacha Moshe Messina. Amalai. So Rabbi Yehuda said back to him, Avzar and Abanav Miskaprim by. Yehuda says, no, I disagree. I think Aaron, the Kahanim, do get a kapara from the Sar Lazazel. They argue about whether it provides a kapara to Bnei Aaron. We see that this machlokes about whether the Kahanim get a kapara from the Sar Lazazel is brought in another place. The Tanya, Mikdash HaKodesh. The pasuk says, "B'chiparas Mikdash HaKodesh v'Soil Moed v'Samizbech Yichaper v'Alakoyim v'Alkol Am HaKol Yichaper." The Gemara is going to analyze. The Bryce is going to analyze the whole pasuk. So we start from the beginning. B'chiparas Mikdash HaKodesh Zeh Lifnai v'Lifnim v'Soil Moed Zeh Heichel Mizbeach Kimashmoy. The first part of the pasuk is Mikdash HaKodesh is talking about the Kodesh Kodashim, right? Mikdash Kodesh Kodesh Kodashim. Oil Moed is talking about the Heichel, the inner part, the Beis HaMikdash itself, and Mizbeach is talking about the Mizbeach. Yichaper Elu HaZoros. It's coming to tell you that there's a kapara for the Azoros, and this is talking about a kapara for Tuma in these places. The carbon we're talking about the par. I think the par of Yom Kippur, as well as I think it's the Sar Lashem. That's what the pasuk was talking about. So these karbanos bring a kapara for the averis of Tumah in these four places. And Kahanim, so then we can move to the second part of the pasuk, right? The pasuk had said different places. Al Koinim, Al Kol Am, Al Kol Yichaper. So Al Koinim Kimashmon. Let's talk about the Koinim. Al Kol Am, Al Kol Elu Yisrael. Yichaper Elu Levim. So with darshaning, this is saying that Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says we learn from here that when this pasuk is then is saying that the Kehanim, Levim, and Yisraelim all get a single kapara. Now the pasuk is switching over to talk about the Sar Mistaleach, and it's saying that they all get a kapara on the other averis, the non-Tumah related averis, from the Sar Mistaleach. So Rabbi Yehuda is going l'shitase. Rabbi Shimon Omer, no. Kishem shedam Sar anasa b'fnei mechaper al Yisrael al Tumas Mikdash u'Kedashav. He says just like the Sar anasa b'fnei, the Sar Lashem is mechaper for the Yidden on their Tumas Mikdash u'Kedashav. Kach dam apar mechaper al Akayim al Tumas Mikdash u'Kedashav. So they're both the same, that they both get their kapara. I'm saying it's a separate place. The Dam Sar is mechaper for the tumah of the Yidden, of the Yisraelim, and the Dam Apar is mechaper on the Kaihanim for the tumah of Mikdash Atov, because that's what the pasuk says directly. And Kashem Shevidu Shel Sar Mistaleh mechaper Yisrael b'Shar Averos Kach Vidu Shel Par mechaper L'Kayim b'Shar Averos. He says that there's separate sources, just like there's separate sources which Rabbi Yehuda also agrees to. Legabi Thomas Mikdash Ugdasha for Kehanim and Yisraelim. So too, there's a separate source for the kapara of Kehanim and Yisraelim for Shar mitzvahs, for Shar Averis, and it's only the Yisraelim they get a kapara for the Shor Azazel, but the Dam HaPar, the Vidu Shel Par, which is reference to the par that we just, but the Dam HaPar, or the Vidu of the par, is mechaper on the kainim both for Thomas Mikdash Udashav as well as for Shar Averis. Correct the Gemara. Rav Shimon Havadei Choshvu. How could Rav Shimon Taka say this? That this separate psukim, this Sar Lazazel is not referring to the kainim, but the pasuk said the pasuk said Yichaper al kainim al kol am kol Yichaper. To put them together. In Hushvu to make a partner. The pasuk said they each get a kapara, but it doesn't mean to say that they're getting the kapara from the same source. Ein Chanami, the Sar Lazazel is providing the kapara for the Yidden, for the Yisraelim, and the Kehanim are coming from the power of the Kohen God, the power of Yom Kippur. Practic Gemara Levi Yehuda Tumas Mikdash Ukdashav. So now the Gemara just recaps what we said. L'Rab Yehuda Tumas Mikdash Ukdashav Yisrael Mechapri B'dam Sar Hanasa B'Pnim V'Kanem B'Par Shel Ar B'Shar V'Kanem B'Par Shel Ar B'Shar V'Yisrael V'El Mechapri B'Vidui Siyar Mishtaleh. This is Rabbi Yehuda's shita that they both get the Shar Averis from the Sar HaMishtaleh, from the Sar Lazal. Well, if Shimon B'Shar Averis Nami Kahanim B'Vidui the Par Miskapi. He says by Shar Averis also the Kehanim get their kapara from the Vidui Par, just like they get their kapara on Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha. The Shar Averis are also from the Par, not from the Sar Lazazel. The Tani Echad Yisrael Echad Kehanim Echad Kohen Mashiach. Ma ben Yisrael leKehanim leKohen Mashiach. What's the difference in Yisraelim and Kehanim and the Aaron El Shaddam Apar Mechaber leKohenim Al Tumas Mikdash Ukdasha. Do the Rabbi Yehuda V'Shimon B'Shem Shaddam Asar Nasa B'Fnim Mechaber Yisrael Kach Apar Mechaber Al Kohenim. Kiveim Shavidu Shel Sar Mishaleh Mechaber Yisrael Kach Vidu Shel Par Mechaber Al Kohenim. This Gemara is very repetitive, and I think some of the Girsoyas take out that middle section. They say that it was. They said it was put in by. It's not really part of the Gemara. It was put in by someone else. Yeah, somewhere in the Shita. I can't find it right now. Okay, Tana Rabban. We're 8 lines from the bottom on Sadi Beis Amud Aleph. Tana Rabban. B'samchu aziknei edes yedeim al rosh hapar. Parton smicha ve'en sira avodas kechavim kunin smicha. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Right. This is our Mishnah. Right. Our Mishnah had said Rabbi Yehuda says that the general rule is that Kabbalah Tzibur don't have smicha, and everyone agrees that one exception to that is the Param Dav Shal Tzibur. But there's a machlokes of Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda about what the second exception is. Rabbi Yehuda says the second exception is the Sar Lazazel. Rav Shimon says the Sar Lazazel ein echanami need smicha, but as we just said, it's not done. The smicha is not done by the Kehanim. It's done by the Kehanim. The Kehanim are not the Bailim, so therefore it's not counted. And therefore Rav Shimon says the exception is the Sar Avodas Kechavim. That Sar Avodas Kechavim has smicha. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says Sar Avodas Kechavim does not have smicha. So Tanrabam, the Samchu Ziknei Ha'edes Yedeim Al Rosh Hapar Parton Smicha Ve'ein Tzirei Avodas Kechavim Tu'unin Smicha. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda learns out from the Samchu Ziknei Ha'edes that only the par Kalam Davar, which is the first din of the Mishnah, that says that the pasuk says the hedge that it needs smicha, but that comes to tell you to be memayed that Sira Avodas Kechavim does not need smicha, and that's Rabbi Yehuda's shita from the Mishnah. Shimon Aimer parton smicha biskenim ve'ein Sira Avodas Kechavim tunin smicha biskenim. He says no. The miyat from par is not to tell you that Sira Avodas Kechavim doesn't need smicha, because he also does need smicha. But what it's coming to tell you is that even though the par gets smicha from the Bezdin, which is the representatives of Klal Yisrael, that's the Bailim, but the Sira Avaitz Gechavim, the smicha is not with the Skenim, it's with Aaron. And this is obviously problematic, as the Gemara is going to ask in a minute, because we said the reason why Rav Shimon says you can't say Sar Lazazel is because it's done by the Kohanim. The Kohanim are not the ones who did the Avera. So by Param Davish Shal Tzibur, the Chayrit should be the same thing. I'm sorry, by Sirus Gechavim should be the same thing. If it's by Aaron, then it's also not Smicha.
So what's the case of Sirus Gechavim? With the whole Tzibur?
That's when it's similar to Palam Davish Al Tzibur. I think it's but they were specifically told they could do some kind of Avodah Zarah. Mm-hmm. And the whole Tzibur went and did it at their direction, and it turns out that they were incorrect. You think like, how could it come about that she makes such a mistake? I moved into this house and we found on the wall, we were living there for like a month and a half. We found there was a emblem of some Aztec Inca god. And someone in my house said, you never know. Maybe we should just keep it there. So I don't know. Maybe they wiped it up by Zara. I hope not. I don't think they were serious. Sakdumar. In any case, so that's Sira Avodas Gechavim. Special, instead of the Paral Davashal Tzibur, you bring the Seir. And it's brought by the Kehan. How could you say this is the source for saying that this Sira Avodas Gechavim don't need smicha? Ramini hachai ton smicha, and Rav Shimon says it does. We still haven't seen where Rav Shimon says, that Sira Avodas Gechavim do need smicha, but he's saying it's just saying we don't exclude it from here. It just excludes it that it's not brought by the Kehanim. It's brought by Kehanim as opposed to by Bezdin. Ramini hachai ton smicha vein Sira Avodas Gechavim ton smicha. It says. The pasuk says, by the Sar Lazazel. We learn after the Sar Lazazel that only the Sar Lazazel needs smicha, and the Sira Avodas Gechavim don't need smicha. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Shemini mechayto and smicha ba'aron. The ein Sira Avodas Gechavim to need smicha ba'aron ela b'skenim. So l'chayr we have a stira that the first one learned it out from the Parham Davish Al Tzibur. The second pasuk learns it out as we learn it out from as a miyat from the Param Davish Al Tzibur. The second pasuk learns it as a miyat from the Sar Lazazel. Amar of Sheshes v'Tizbara. How kamaisa mitartzi? Now the Gemara asked the question that we asked. Amar of Shimon smicha b'baylam bina. Shimon says you need smicha b'baylam. So how could Rav Shimon have said that the pasuk is talking about the Sir Avodas Gechavim and the Avodas Gechavim? Sir Avodas Gechavim is brought by Kehanim, not by the Bezdin, who will represent the people who are actually over on the Avera. And then, so just like Rav Shimon said, you can't count the Sar Lazazel because it's not brought by the Baalim. If this was true, as the Gemara, as this Brisa said, then the Asir Avodas Gechavim that he put in its place would also be excluded from being treated as a smicha. Elotar Tafi. Hapar, so we put together the two Brisa. Hapar, Parton smicha ve'en Sir Avodas Gechavim tunun smicha. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Yehuda Taka learns out from Parham Davish Al Tzibur to exclude Avodas Gechavim. Rav Shimon Omer hachai chayto and smicha ba'aron ve'en Sira Avodas Gechavim tunu smicha ba'aron ela b'skenim. He says, like we said in the second brisa, that it's coming to tell you that Sira Avodas Gechavim don't need smicha. It's not done by Aaron, but rather it's done by the skenim. It's done by the Bailam, and that's why it's included as a smicha in the Mishnah. Sira Gechavim bo smicha. Sira Avodas Gechavim needs smicha. V'ishmi alach delei bo smicha. And if you were to taina that you've heard, you have a reason to believe you thought you've heard that it doesn't need smicha, that doesn't mean that it doesn't need smicha at all. Ba'aron hu d'shmi alach. It's from it just was memuyat that it's not brought by the kohanim. Umiyuta me'achayu, and the miyat is from Chayiv. Rabbi Yehuda. Why do we have to have a pasuk to tell us that Avodas Gechavim is not does not have smicha? Why would we think it does? We learned that there are shnei smichas b'tzibur, so we already have a param davar, which the Torah says behedya, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, we also have a sar lazafel. So why would we think that there's a third one of sira v'tzgechavim? The Gemara girsa ba'alma. Ein chanami. It's like the way Rashi says, "Klem evade leitzarchem etinu tvei mikroi elachi hadamatinu mishum girsa ba'alma shtei rogel shtei smichas betzibur besuloi kroi smachta b'alma." The kroi is a smachta b'alma, but ein chanami. It's to remind you. It's a smachta b'alma essentially to remind us that this rule that there's only two korbanot tzibur that have smicha. Now the other question, Rav Shimon, Sira v'tzgechavim the boy smicha minal. Where does Rav Shimon know that Sira v'tzgechavim needs smicha? Like more nafkalam meditanya. V'samach yada al rosh hasoyer. The Torah says that you should be samach yada al rosh hasoyer. The rabbis, that's talking about the sar lazazel. The rabbis sar nachshon. This didn't have to say this. What does it have to say al rosh hasar? It's coming to include the sar of nachshon, which is the sar by the chinuch of the Beis Hamikdash of the Mishkan, that all the Rashi Shvatim each brought a carbon. They each brought a sar. The first one to bring was Nachshon. He was always the first b'chol dvar mitzvah. So we call those the Sir Nachshon. So that Sir also that was brought by the Rashi Shvatim was also had a smicha. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Shimon Omer l'Rabbi Sir Rabbi Tzgechavim l'smicha. Shimon disagrees, and this is his source, that Sira v'tzgechavim also needs smicha. Shimon Omer kol chata shenichnas dam lefnim keunin smicha. All chatas that is brought inside, and the Sira v'tzgechavim is from the param hanisrafim. The param hanisrafim all have a matan dam in the heichel, the regular karbanos, no, the typical karbanos yachid and the other karbanos. The non-nisrafim karbanos are all thrown on the mizbeach hachitzin, but these are brought lefnim, and these need smicha. Lamali lememra shahaya r'shimonai mikol chata shenichnas. Why do you have to say this extra thing? Why could we just say l'rabbi sira v'tzgechavim l'smicha? Simana ba'alma. It's to remind you, so you'll be able to keep in mind that this is an exception. Sira v'tzgechavim needs smicha, even though it's a carbon tzibur. Ve'ema sar hanasa b'pnim dum yudisar nasa idim ve'ema sar nasa b'pnim. Why don't we say that the sar hanasa b'pnim, that should be, what was this? Meaning the sar of Yom Kippur. Let's say that should be the one that's meroba. Instead of Sira v'tzgechavim, let's say Sar Nasa B'pnim should be the one to get a smicha from this reboot. How do you know to be marba of v'tzgechavim? The Sir Nasi. Just like the Sir Nasi, the Mechaper al Averis Mitzvah Yadua. Similar to the Sir of the Nasi who does, which is one of the Siris, hold on, what's a Sir Nasi? What is that a reference to? Why are we comparing it to the Sir Nasi? The Sir Nasi, what is the Sir Nasi? We get. The
Rashi says that this
the pasuk is talking about the Sar
Nasi.
Right, this is talking about the Sir Nasi that it has. Right, this is a carbon yachid, so therefore it has smicha. So say dumi the Sir Nasi mechapel averis mitzvah yudua. The Sir Nasi, when the Nasi does an avera, he has to bring a special carbon. He brings a sar instead of the regular chatas that other people bring. So that he does smicha. So we're going to rather compare. We'll rather include the Sir Avodas Kechavim, which is also for a mitzvah yadua, as opposed to the carbon of the Sir Anasa B'fnim, which is brought on Yom Kippur, which is a generalized. We don't know that somebody was necessarily nichnas into the Tumas Mikdash Dasha, that they need that it's for a general possible avera, not for a known avera. According to Ravina, who said that we know that there are only shnei smichot tzibur, kroy lomali. What do we need the pasuk for? We can learn it out from the fact that there's only two. So what do you need an extra one? So we know. So l'chayra we would know that there has to be a second. And according to Shimon, the Sar Lazazel is excluded. It's not by the Bailam, so it has to tell you something. So l'chayra would have to be the Seer Avodas Kechavim. Itzrich hilchos avechos kroy. The imikra. If you would learn after
Why
the
shouldn't we
pasuk.
answer the same like Rabbi Yehuda? That's just an asmachta.
So we're asking the other way around. We're asking, oh, why don't we say just that's not a terrace that we that's not an ideal terrace. Smach the B'Almas.
Then it doesn't look so good for then it doesn't look so good for Rabbi Yehuda, unfortunately.
I mean, whenever it's always
Then get the whole lumdish answer, and Yehuda were like, all right, it's machta.
Yeah, listen, you could always. We always try not to answer asmach the B'Alma. That's yeah. So we need itzrich hilchasav itzrich kroy. The mikra, if we learn out from the pasuk that seer the Sar Avodas Kechavim is needs smicha havamina zivchei shalmei tzibur. I would say maybe it's not. Maybe the pasuk that's saying that we're learning that we're saying there's one other thing that needs smicha. Maybe it's not talking about seer Avodas, maybe it's the shalmei tzibur. Kikashu the amasnis in the hachpir. The kol hamanachas boys, like the kasha that we had earlier. Amar of Shimon, shloisha minin tu'unin shalish mitzvahs. We said there were three. We really have to look this up because it's there is this samach beis amid beis. I'm not going to remember everything, but if you should be familiar at least the lashon. I can't find it. Where's that? I'm in the wrong place. Daled. Leil samach beis amid beis.
Samach aleph. Samach aleph amid aleph.
That's weird. Yeah. I guess he's talking about the Gemara's kasha on that Gemara. But in any case, the Mishnah says, there are three types of karbanos that have three mitzvahs. The three mitzvahs are smicha and tnufa while they're alive, and tnufa of the basar. And the three minin are Be'elohim, zivchei shalmei yachid, regular shlomim, zivchei shalmei tzibur, which is, I think I think those are the ones for on Shavuos, and ba'asha mitzayra, and they divide up. Each one has two of the three mitzvahs. Zivchei shalmei yachid u'nit smicha chaim u'tnufa. They need smicha, and they need smicha while they're alive. I'm sorry, I said tnufa, chaim, and dead, but it's really smicha. Whether you need smicha on the basar and smicha, right? No, so smicha chaim and tnufa shchutim. Ain't been tnufa chaim. They don't have tnufa while they're alive. Zivchei sham mitzibah tnufa chaim ushchita ushchutin. Ain't been smicha v'asham mitzayir ton smicha tnufa v'chaim ain't tnufa ain't by tnufa shachar. I'm sorry. Okay. So the Gemara over there had asked, where's the pasuk? Where's the Gemara? Laisi b'kal v'chaymer. let's make the kavach. I mean, zivchei shal mitzibur tunin smicha. Let's learn out that zivchei shal mitzibur should need smicha, which our Mishnah had just said. All kabbalah tzibur don't need smicha, and this is not one of the exceptions. Mikal v'chaymer, from a kal v'chaymer, mashal meyachid she'en tunin tnufa chayim tunin smicha chayim. If the shalma yachid that don't have a tnufa while they're alive, tunin smicha chayim, they do need smicha. So there I would say that also the zivchei shal mitzibur should also need smicha. So therefore, if you would have learned it out from the pasuk, I would say the pasuk was because of this kal v'chayim would be referring to shal mitzibur. It's your chelkasa, so that's what we need the chelkasa to tell you. There's only two things. If it would learn out from the Hilchas, I wouldn't know which one. Therefore, we have to have the pasuk, which tells you to include the Sawyer Sirav Kechavim, because it's talking about an Aveira, and that we learn it out from the Sawyer of the Nasi, which is also on a specific Aveira. So, how we doing? Okay. Now we move on to the other side of the ledger. Right? The first part of the Mishnah was telling you all the things that all the Kabbalah Tzibur don't need smicha, except for the exceptions that we said. Now we're saying all Kabbalah Yachid do need smicha, and the exceptions are Bechar, Ma'aser, Pesach that don't. Kabbalah, the pasuk says 3 times Kabbalah. So the first one, Kabbalah, tells you, and not a Bechar, that you need smicha on a carbon and not on the Bechar. The Paris says there is smicha on a shlamim. So certainly I would think a Bechar, which is born Kaddish, it's not Makuddish by the owner, should also need smicha. So Talmud Laima Kabbalah. Kabbalah tells you not like that. The loy ha-Bechar, and we also learn that Bechar from a pasuk. Kabbalah v'loy ha-Bechar. V'loy ha-Bechar, Kabbalah v'loy meiser. I would say Kabbalah v'loy ha-Bechar. Kabbalah v'loy meiser. Kabbalah tells you a not meiser, not the 10th animal. Sheyachav al-Yidinu. U'mashlam she'em mekadsh l'fnei machareim. When you mekadosh a shlam, only the shlam itself becomes kaddish. Tu'un and smicha, and it needs smicha. Meiser shemekadosh l'fanav la'akra. Meiser, the 10th animal, that if someone makes a mistake and he by mistake counts the 9th animal or the 11th animal, they also get a din kedusha. So it's a more assertive, it's a more expansive chiyuv of kedusha. Ein a din sheton smicha. Certainly meiser should need smicha. Tamalei kabbalah v'lei meiser. Kabbalah v'lei Pesach, and how do you know Pesach? So we learn Kabbalah v'lei Pesach. Sheyachav v'lei dinu. I would have a kal v'chayim the other way by Pesach. Umashlam she'ene ba'amad v'hava. Tu'un and smicha. Regular shlam, there's no requirement that you bring a shlamim. It's a nedava, and still it needs smicha. Pesach shu ba'amad v'have. A person is required to bring a Pesach. Ein din sheton smicha. Tamad laim Kabbalah v'lei Pesach. Look at my ikal l'mifrach. You could ask on all three of these kal v'chaymers. We said we need the psukim to tell you that they are excluded, because otherwise I would say you would learn out a kal v'chaymer from Shlomim. I could ask on all these kal v'chaymers. That the Shlomim has a chumrah over all these things, over Pesach and Meiser and Bechar, that the Shlomim needs Nesachim, and none of these have Nesachim, and they have Tnuv Chaz B'Shoik of the after the animal is shechted, that it needs a separate tnufa, which these don't. So tomorrow, Lizzie's going to be happy. Kroya smachta bi'alma. Einachanami. The psukim, this is only to help remind us. So back to Gemara, Ela kroya lomli. Okay, we're not letting you off so easily. So now what are the psukim for? If you say kroya smachta bi'alma, so they're not really necessary. So what are you tackling out from these karbanis? So Gemara, karbana v'lei karban chavere, karbana v'lei karban. First, Kabbalah tells you that you can only bring, you only do smicha on your own carbon. You can't make a shliach to do smicha for you. Someone else can't do the smicha. You can Kabbalah, maybe you could make a shliach, but you can't just do it for someone else's carbon. Karbonai v'loy carbon avid kechavim. You can't do it on avid kechavim. There's no smicha on avid kechavim's carbon. Karbonai l'rabes kol bali carbon l'smicha. If there's a bunch of people who participated in a carbon, all of them have to do smicha. The Mishnah had ended. Okay, we're going to be aggressive. Hayirish saimach. The Yirish, we said the Yirish also does smicha, and we said a couple of other dinim of the Yirish that he also is maybe he could do tmura, and he could also be maybe in a sachem. Someone who inherits his father's carbon, he steps into his father's shoes to do the smicha, as well as to do tmura, and to and what was the other thing? And to maybe in the sachem. Zakdamar. Tani Rav Chananya Kameda Rava. Yirish ain't a saimek. Yirish ain't a meimer. A Yirish does not do smicha, and a Yirish cannot do tmura. His tmura is ineffective. Our Mishnah said the other way around. Amalei, should I reverse this brisa? He said if our Mishnah is chaylik, maybe the brisa is incorrect. It's saying they can be saimach and bring nesachim and do tmura. Amalei loy masis and mani Rabbi Yehuda. Our Mishnah is going to Rabbi Yehuda. Tanya Yirish saimach Yirish meimer. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Yirish ain't a saimach. I'm sorry, the brisa is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Yirish ain't a saimach. Yirish ain't a meimer. It's a machlokes tanoim, and our Mishnah is the Tanakama, and the brisa that we just brought that said that he can't is Rabbi Yehuda. My time of the Rabbi Yehuda. Why does Rabbi Yehuda say a Yirish can't do these things? Karbonai v'loy carbon of. He learns out karbonai, but not the carbon of his father. We had said before karbonai v'loy carbon achar. He says even aviv, he can't even be Yirish. You need us? Okay. So tomorrow b'yalef tchilas hektish misayif hektish. Correct. Tomorrow b'yalef tchilas hektish misayif hektish. We learn tchilas hektish, which is tmura. When you make, we said just like we're saying that he can't. He does smicha, which is at the end after you already brought the carbon. So just like v'loy carbon aviv, so it tells you also that he can't do tmura, which is at the beginning. Masav hektish yerish and misabechat tchilas hektish yerish ain't a man. Rabbanan hamir yomer l'rabis is a yerish. They learn out that hamir yomer tells you that the yerish can do tmura. The al seif hektish tchilas hektish. They learn the other way around. Since the yerish can do tmura, the Yerish can also do smicha. Matchil is hektish Yerish meimer. Afsayf hektish Yerish sama. Rabbanon high karbonai ma'avdilei. What do they do with this karbonai? Karbonai v'le karbonai v'kechavim. Karbonai v'le karbon chaver. Karbonai l'rabis kol bali karbon l'smicha. Like we said at the top of the Yomid, it's coming to tell you all these dinim that it can't be brought by avid kechavim. It can't bring your friend's carbon, and not of a and everyone who's involved has to do smicha. Rabbi Yehuda, the rabbis kol bali carbon l'smicha lesle. He doesn't agree that everyone has to do the smicha. So that's why he has an extra carbonic. In Vinami, Isle could be Hitaka does hold that kol bali carbon l'smicha, that everyone has to participate in the smicha. It's all the same thing to tell you that you can't do smicha for Ovid Kechavim and you can't do a smicha for a Chaveri. Ovid Kechavim certainly can't go into the Beis HaMikdash and do smicha, so he's always going to have to do it through someone else. So once we're saying that someone else can't do it, it means also Ovid Kechavim doesn't do smicha. Zok Gemara, Ayasru le Trey Kroy, Chad Karban v'le Karban Ava. So v'idach l'rabis kol bali carbon l'smicha. So he has two left over since he learns two things from the same thing. So he has an extra one to tell you l'v'loi carbon up. Yehuda high hamer yamer mayavet. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with this hamer yamer that the other Manda Amar said to tell you that there is smicha by Aviv? Mibai l'rabis is a isha. It's coming to tell you that there is tmura by an isha. Tanya l'pisha kola inyan kuleinim davu lashon zacha. Ma sefin l'rabis. How do you know to include the Isha? Rabbanan Darshim Ve'im, they learn it out from Ve'im to include an Isha. Yehuda Ve'im, like Darsh. He does not Darshan Ve'im. Okay, we will stop over here.
Thank you. Have a great day.
When we're saying that there's a snach the Baalma.
Yeah.
That means that the pasuk could be still used for something else.
Yeah, that not only could it be used for something else, the Gemara asks, you have to use it for
You have to
something else. Asmachta, it means it's not a limud. It's something that the Chachamim used to help remind people of what